Hello and welcome to the Flag Motorsport Podcast. My name is Charlie Roscoe and I'm joined as always by livery expert Ryan from Ryan Lee Graphics. And as always, the esteemed Willie. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hello. How are we?
Very well, very well. Big weekend of motorsport this weekend.
Huge weekend.
Yeah, we had pretty much all of our major series that we cover just this weekend alone, which is always great to put everything on at once. But nonetheless, it's good to listen to. It's good to watch. And so big, in fact, I don't even think we're going to touch on the World Supersport this weekend, simply based on the fact that the championship's over. So why don't we start briefly on the Formula One, shall we?
It wasn't the most exciting race overall. A few little bits and pieces along the way, I guess, that were not controversial, but relatively interesting. With Daniel Ricciardo having strong pace, but then DNF, which is a shame. Max Verstappen as well made the podium, but then didn't really.
No. Well, actually, look, I'm going to start straight away. I'm going to jump straight into the Max Verstappen thing, and I've seen so many people up in arms, getting upset, complaining about his penalty that he got robbed or whatever. I'm sorry, he cut the track.
He did.
He got penalised, and he deserved to not get that podium.
Yeah, because if that was anything like GT Sport on PlayStation, if you cut the track, you get a penalty. And you've got to slow down or it comes off your race time. It's an immediate thing. So if that was the case, he would have had to deal with it then.
Well, I'm quickly going to open up the video now so that people can actually watch what happened. But categorically, he ran all four wheels. Like, he got squeezed a little bit, and then he just kind of went, well, no, I want to overtake. So he just went on the inside of the track. You can't do that. That's cutting the corner.
No.
I mean, if you can do that, you may as well just straight line a chicane and overtake as many people as you can each lap until you get to the front.
That's right.
That's what I think of it anyway. Ryan, you're awfully quiet over there. What do you think of it?
Yeah, well, obviously I haven't actually seen it yet, but I've seen all the articles and all the comments and everything like that, and I think Christian Horner was saying that the one thing he was most disappointed about was the knee-jerk reaction, whereas a similar thing happened at Mexico last year, and after that they basically said that, all right, next time we'll be more hands-off and try and talk to everybody involved before we make the decision. But the problem was that they made the decision so fast because they just didn't want to have all these different people on the podium and all that sort of stuff, like at Mexico last year.
Well, I kind of think that's the right decision, though. Like, they had to make it as soon as they possibly could, because it was about the podium. It was the difference between Verstappen standing on the podium, going through the celebrations, and then turning out later, of course, that he wasn't supposed to be there. I think they had to make that decision, and it should have been an easy one. As far as I'm concerned, if you can run all four wheels off the track and overtake someone, and the difference is, I've seen all these examples popping up of different situations where cars have run off the track. I think Hamilton did it in the same race, Bottas did it in the same race. The difference is that, they weren't gaining an advantage from it. They were making a mistake, they were getting forced out wide, whatever the case may be. And Max Verstappen actually overtook someone on the inside. So, as far as I'm concerned, he cut the corner and he overtook someone by doing it. And you can't do that.
Yeah, you would certainly think that, if he was pushed in because, he's sort of cut off or whatever and he had to take the inside the track, then that's fair enough. But once you get out of the turn, you just slot back behind and continue on, sort of thing.
Just redress the position, but he couldn't. It was the final lap, and he just wanted to take the position.
It wasn't on the last corner though, so it
wasn't. No, and he should have redressed because that was the right thing to do, and ultimately the stewards had to do it for him, and that's fine.
Yeah.
It's I just disagree with everyone that's up in arms about it, saying he got robbed or what have you, or it was just a bad decision. I don't agree. He cut the corner. If that was Monaco, he'd have cut the corner straight into a brick wall. They don't overtake people on the inside of any other track, so, it is what it is. In one way, I'm glad it happened, though, because it was probably the light in what was otherwise a fairly dim race.
Yeah, I didn't find it that exciting. What was kind of exciting for Carlos Sainz, though, is that he came 7th. He had a good run.
He had an amazing run. He's a good talent, and I don't think Renault would have known what to do with themselves, because normally if Hulkenberg doesn't go well, then that's it. You know, we know Palmer's going to be third last, so they've only got one car in the race. All of a sudden, Hulkenberg, unfortunately for him, had to retire from the race, and they actually had a second driver that was able to get up there and get the job done. And you're dead right. Carlos Sainz had an absolute cracking race, and I was quite impressed with the Renault performance at a track like Texas, Austin.
Yeah, well, he said he's pretty pleased with the package. He said everything was an improvement.
Yeah, for sure.
Well,
I think the engines...
Same engine, but
it is the same
I think everything else was a step up.
You'd like to think so, because they are a factory
Not
outfit.
massively, but it is a step up, they were saying. So, yeah, well, as you can see, 7th. Good result.
It was a good result. Absolutely, it was a good result. And, of course, the pink round as well, which was added a little bit of spice to it, having Renault's stupid cat winglet on the side, which I'm not a huge fan of, but nonetheless. It was nice to see all the pink everywhere, and the pink tyres. Of course, the ultra soft tyres were pink, which was cool to see.
Yeah.
So obviously, I missed the race. So what's with the pink race? Pink?
So it was the breast cancer awareness. So much like you've probably seen the cricket does it as well.
The cricket,
dressed up in pink, and they did something very similar. So there were pink highlights on everything, and Pirelli actually coloured the writing and the lines on the ultra soft tyres.
Fair enough.
In pink. So that was kind of cool. That spiced it up a little bit. It wasn't the most interesting of races, simply because I think, Sebastian got a good start. Vettel got a good start, and he actually got to the front. But ultimately, just didn't have the pace. Hamilton just overtook him under normal pace, with a bit of DRS assistance. And
Well, it looked like Hamilton was sitting there for a while, and then just went, I'm sick of this. And he just pulled out and passed him and gapped him.
Yeah, that's it. It was just a little bit... In fact, one thing I did notice there was that the gap, the absolute Grand Canyon, if I can use that term being in America, it seems appropriate. The Grand Canyon between the top couple of teams, and then I'm just trying to think about what the results were when I was looking at it, but ultimately it was the top 5, I think, because at that point Ricciardo had retired, unfortunately for him. Not a good day in the office. But the gap between the top 5 back to 6th, I think it was epic. It was huge. There you go, just having a look here. Valtteri Bottas finished 34.9 seconds behind Hamilton. But Ocon, in 6th place, was 90.9 seconds. That's massive. Like that.
Yeah, which is why as soon as he got past, he went in and put another set of tyres on.
Yeah,
because there was that, and that's after a pit stop too. So he just had just a huge gap. So they had time to burn and thought,
was only 16 seconds. 16 seconds behind the leader. So if you kind of think Bottas lost 20 seconds or something like that in the pit stop, he would have gained a bit back because he was on ultra soft and low fuel. But nonetheless, like if you think he was basically with Verstappen, that is just a ginormous gap between the top 3 teams and everyone else who's running in the Formula 1B class. It's huge.
Yeah. Big drive by Verstappen. He's good at coming through the field, isn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, he's good to watch. There's no doubt about that. And as much as he did cut the corner and deserved 4th, not 3rd, it was obviously an amazing run through from the pack. Absolutely. Yeah,
from 16th. And I think last race he was 16th to 3rd as well. So if he did actually legitimately do the move, So
I think
if he can qualify near the front and have no penalties and all the other little dramas and whatever have you, he can win races hands down.
Absolutely. Look, he's quick. He's definitely quick, and that Red Bull's getting quicker. It's bridging the gap.
It really is.
Even in all the early sessions, the Mercedes looked at least a second faster than everyone else out there. But in quali, Vettel only managed to be, I think it was 2 tenths behind, or maybe 3 tenths behind Hamilton. and Dan Ricciardo was only 4/10 down. Like, that's pretty good to be 4/10 at a place like Austin, which has a lot of long straights where the Mercedes reigns, supreme. And the Red Bull was good enough to be only 4/10 down. That's good. That means that they're making big improvements, I think.
They are, and the car is phenomenal under brakes.
It is, stability-wise, and I think just handling package-wise, it's amazing.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it gets untidy under brakes. They're very confident. Ricciardo did have a couple of dive bomb moves. The one on Bottas, he came from miles back.
He did. He came from about last week, but nonetheless, he got it done, didn't he? I mean, he didn't. He forced him out wide and whatever else, but nonetheless, it didn't end in catastrophe. So
no, and the commentators always talk about how good he is on the brakes and how his moves come out of nowhere and stuff like that. So it's he's one of their strong points. So if they can get a bit more pace out of it, as for like speed, from the engine, it'll be a fantastic package.
Oh, it's an awesome package, and obviously it was good enough to re-sign Max Verstappen, who has now signed on.
3 years.
He's off the market. He's officially off the market. However, Dan Ricciardo is not off the market. So, is he going to be in red, or is he going to be in whatever the hell Petronas colours are? Aqua and silver? Aqua? Is that what you'd call that?
Well, one would say it'd be silver because, the team's typically known as the silver arrows.
It is mainly silver, but still, there's quite a lot of the Petronas colour on it these days. But anyway, which colour will Ricciardo be in next year? I don't know, but I feel like he won't be in the Red Bull team. But before we move on from F1, do want to touch...
He'll be there next... Isn't his contract still for next year? Sorry, before we move on.
No.
Isn't he still signed for next year?
No, Dan Ricciardo runs out at the end of this year, I believe.
Right, I thought he still had another 12 months.
I don't think so. No, he runs out at the end of this year. So next year, I feel like he might be in Red Bull, but I just don't think that's the way that's going.
What about Kimi? He's signed on for one more year, isn't he?
Yes. Yes, he is. Yeah, good.
Yeah, well, he wouldn't be in a Ferrari.
Well, no, but they could move... I reckon they could move Kimi aside pretty quickly. I don't think that would be a massive deal for him, sponsorship and whatever.
Okay.
But
we'll have to have a look and see what options there are. There's a bit of a talking point.
That we will. But look, what I wanted to touch on, of course, was the newcomer to Formula One for the weekend, which was the Kiwi Brendan Hartley, and his performance.
How did he go?
How he went. Look, I've got to say that I wasn't initially that impressed. I thought, you're going to have to beat Kvyat. You're going to have to make yourself look quite good, because they seem pretty ruthless at Red Bull. They've obviously chucked in one drive. But I actually said that he wouldn't get another race. I called it at the end of the race. I said, no, that's him. He's had his go. I hope he enjoyed it in Formula 1, because I don't think he'll be asked back. He didn't do a particularly great job. And then I turned out to be completely wrong, because they've dropped Kvyat, and he will be back for the next race. Brendan Hartley will. And
so going by general rule of thumb, though, that means that Verstappen's up for a win at Interlagos then. Oh, sorry, Mexico.
Why is
because
that?
whenever they drop Kvyat, Verstappen gets a win.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's like he almost feeds off the pain of Kvyat, doesn't he?
Yeah, let me eat your misery.
But I mean, it's interesting. I don't know. I mean, I expected him to do well, but at the same time, to jump into a new car with I'm not going to say he was out of form or anything. Like he's doing well, as we said last week. He's physically fit and all that sort of stuff, and he knows the track and that. So I think the biggest thing would be getting around the aero and the tyres and working out all that sort of stuff. So first race in a new car. It's not too bad. I saw
he finished the race. He was sort of last of the actual runners for the vast majority of the race, and about 5 odd seconds down. He wasn't quite keeping up with the Saubers, and that's why I thought, you just haven't done it. You've just not got the job done. But obviously I was wrong, because Kvyat's back out again. Don't know how that guy's... Seriously, how do you pick yourself up in the morning and go to the next F1 race? They say, come and have another drive. You'd be like, I just can't even. I just can't.
Yeah.
I don't... I don't care for this.
The-
I suppose you do, it's F1, but still.
The other benefit as well is that Brandon Hartley does have laps at Mexico as well, because obviously the World Endurance Championship goes there too. So
Yeah, so that might help him out a little bit. Plus, he's got a race in the belt. Like, he's had, obviously, as you say. I mean, when was the last year he was in an F1 car? 2007 or something. I think I mentioned it last
ages ago.
Long time ago.
You would almost say that there is probably hindering me more than anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's different aero,
it's
different
changed so
engine,
much.
different everything. It's a whole new ball game. So he had a lot to learn. He did lap around. He didn't run into anyone. He finished the race, so that was on his side. But yeah, there's obviously a lot of data and such that teams can see that we can't. And maybe he was just consistent, fast. Maybe if you had a few things had gone a different way, he might have gone a bit better.
The other thing as well is that we don't know what he was sent there to do. Maybe
No, right.
he did exactly what he was told to do.
Yeah, quite possibly. Maybe they just said, look, we don't much care about your results. I just don't want you to wreck the car, but we have to enter a car. So
Yeah, what we want to do is we want to see you do consistent laps in this sort of space of time of lap there, and keep it off the walls and keep it clean. And maybe he did just that. If he's ticked all their boxes, he's obviously had to do something to make him happy.
he must have done. Yeah, because they've got him back, and him and Gasly will be at the next round. So that's that's a good thing. I still think Gasly's going to be in the Red Bull next year in Danny Rick's seat, and and maybe they're looking at Brendan to take over the Toro Rosso seat.
Who knows?
Who
knows? I think probably the last thing to touch on with the Formula One would be the fact that Hamilton's basically clinched for the title.
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
He's
100%.
66 points remaining from 75 points available. Essentially he has to DNF, and Vettel has to win everything. So it's highly unlikely, but at the same time mathematically possible. So
yeah. It is mathematically possible, but it's all but done. Hamilton has clinched his next one for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is what it is. But nonetheless, I think we'll probably we've spent enough time on the Formula One there, given how much we've got to go. So I might flip over next to the Supercars, and then we might finish on the MotoGP. So Supercars, Willie, kick us off.
Big weekend.
Was
Started dry, then it was wet on the Saturday race, and then dry again for Sunday.
And it was really wet on the Saturday race. Like, don't play that down. It was horrendous.
Oh, it was. The first, 1, 2, 3 chicane? I think it's classed as. Anyway, the first little chicane section, massive puddles through there. Controversial for Tim Slade's Freightliner car. Come in with a big lead on the Saturday. The Ajax went down and went in a groove in the tarmac in the pit lane and couldn't get the wheel on and off quick enough.
That was a bizarre thing. So for those of you who don't know, just explain how the Ajax work and what it fell into in the actual pits, and why they weren't able to change the tyre. Just presume someone listening doesn't understand completely.
Yeah, so the Ajax are only a couple hundred mil high, so when the cars pull in, air gets plugged into the side of the car. There's already air contained.
It just gets pushed into the side of the car.
Yeah, it's just an air hose. So the air is already contained inside the car. So as soon as the air gets pushed into the fitting on the side of the car, it lifts pretty much instantaneously.
It just pushes the rod out from the base of the car, which goes into the ground.
Yeah, so it probably gives it 75 to 100 mil, I guess. Maybe would be that much.
Which is generally heaps.
From the tyres off the ground, which is fine to throw one on and off. But there was a crevice, I suppose, in the pit lane.
Well, how did it form? It was like a massive crack, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It was in the middle, so you come in a bit skew whiff, which that's how it happened. If they come in square in between their lines, it would have been fine. But they come in a little bit skew whiff, and the jack just wasn't high enough. So they struggled, they burnt time.
One crack in the pit lane that his jack could have gone into, and he managed to nail it. Couldn't get the rear tyre off because the car certainly didn't go up high enough. They had to basically put the nut back on, send him back out. But of course, for race 2, they did actually overnight. They did reseal that little patch.
What I thought was interesting what I thought was interesting was the fact that, they spend so much time doing track walks, looking for cracks, bumps, and all that sort of stuff. Why didn't they think about that in pit lane? I mean, it's not a very long pit lane, so
And it did
the
seem
chances
like an
of having
big crack to just miss it
Yeah,
and not notice it was there.
massive. And that's the thing, like the opportunity for a car to pull over and not be square on the pit box like it's meant to be is quite high at that place because the pit lane's so short. So you're usually having to drive around people to get into pits. So for them to not look at even their own pit bay to sort of say, oh, that could be an issue.
They may have just not had the request until something actually happened. They may have just taken down sort of a note between everybody and said, like, watch this, pull in square, don't go into it. But I suppose you wouldn't do a test, run in it either and go, we'll drop the jack into it and see how high the car gets.
At the same time, a crack that's big enough to take the jacking stand of the car, they're about 2.5 centimeters wide, and it would have had to have gone in.
Out of the pits and friggin' tripping through it.
But I mean, even just the fact that it goes down into that point, dropping tools, nuts, anything, there's the potential for anything to go in there. And if you're in the middle of a race, the last thing you want to be doing is trying to get into a little crevice in the road. So to me, it would have been a straight up fix that.
Yeah.
But who knows? It's either way. It happened. It affected them quite badly.
It did happen. It was quite bizarre, and it did actually cost them quite a lot. You'd think they'd be pretty pissed off overall with just Supercars or the organisers of the event or whatever the case may be, because it did cost them quite a bit.
Yeah, they still ended up getting a podium.
They did.
They
did.
But it's a bit of a shame because Andre Heimgartner, who actually got the call up because Ash Walsh, who was meant to be Slade's teammate, he was injured between Sandown and Bathurst in a crash, wasn't it?
Yep.
And had busted ribs, so Heimgartner actually got the call up. And yeah, amazing pace. Amazing pace. For someone who's not in the car all the time, obviously they had a good setup on the car for the wet. And he's quite handy, but he impressed me with that. It's a little bit of a shame that he's been sort of without a drive because he's a good driver. But then I suppose there's a lot of guys like that. Like you look at Richie Stanaway's performance again, pretty faultless. So I wouldn't be surprised to see.
Richie Stanaway will most likely be in a car next year anyway, so that's not a problem.
Yeah, sure.
But the problem is it all comes down to money. One of the biggest things at the moment is you're potentially looking at Will Davison not even having a drive next year because he doesn't have the coin to front up for a car for Techno. Now, I'm not a huge Will Davison fan, but I still think he's worthy of being on the grid.
Oh, I think he's... Yeah. There's so many drivers that probably shouldn't be there that are because of money. And I think he's still one of those guys in the right car. I don't think Techno aren't the same car, same team as what they were with Giz. I think the problem is a bit of a standout, but yeah.
I think the problem is that they're still running the same stuff they were running with Giz. So now it's all old, and they've got a driver that's not as good. So both of those sort of things are having an effect.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's interesting to see, and I mean, Heimgartner not having a drive definitely came down to money. LDM, that's. Do you even want to be driving for LDM at the moment anyway?
No, that's it. Particularly, I mean, sure you're there, but you're only making up numbers, aren't you?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, you can be a fantastic driver like that, pull away from leaders of the grid, but would you have ever done that? Would have you ever got that opportunity to shine if he was in an LDM car at the back? Yeah, don't think so.
Not at all. No, still would have lapped around and probably just made himself look worse. Probably be bad.
No, the only thing you can do with an LDM car is be a lot quicker than your teammates, so they go, holy shit, he's pedaling that car.
That's it. But even then, like, if you're second last instead of last, no one's still going to notice you.
No. Yeah. Anything 15th back, no one cares.
But something I thought you might have been all up and about. There you go. That's how you say that twice in a row. Craig Lowndes had a pretty good weekend.
Oh yeah, no, I was pretty happy to see the old fella get up there because they haven't really had a great deal of pace. I think he's admitted that there's been a few little things going during the season that they need to make sure they iron out for next year and things like that. So they've had, he said, a couple of mistakes from himself, a few little things go along with the team and a couple of sort of decisions on the fly and things like that haven't really panned out. It doesn't, even though they're a Triple Eight car, the team itself is, it's connected, but it's separate. So they're their own little team under a big team sort of thing. So, I'm a little bit disappointed, or very disappointed with his year, considering what he has been previous.
Absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, it is a bit of a turnaround year with everybody's pace. It was pretty stoked to see the 1, 2, 3 in qualifying for Triple Eight for race 22.
First time we've seen that.
It's been a while since that happens.
Yeah. They still end up coming 4th, which wasn't too bad. The only person to have ruined that, it was Scotty McLaughlin and Alex Premer in the Shell Falcon. Whether it was Red Bull napping or DJR Team Penske pulled just a master stroke out, or just a combination of both. Like the Holden fuel economy isn't as good as the fuel economy of the Falcon, but as you saw with Scotty, he ran out of fuel on the warm down lap after a couple of burnouts.
Yeah,
but he went from 4th to 1st in the pit stops.
But
he did get
me, Red Bull just shit the bed.
He got an undercut.
Yeah,
well, he got the undercut, so they were hanging out, I think, too long.
They waited way too long.
Yeah, they gave who was first on the road? Well, I think Wingcup was first on the road, and they pitted Gears.
Yeah, which was a bizarre move to start with.
Yeah, which was weird, but I'm not really sure why they did that. They did have a reason. It was probably fuel. He probably had slightly less fuel than Jamie. So when they stopped earlier on in the race, maybe that was why they stopped that way. So
either that, or I mean, if you looked at the two cars, Giz was definitely the quicker of the two, and maybe they were just trying to get the undercut on their own teammate.
Sad day with Dumbrell, apart from his little incident there when he tried to throw it down the inside of Steve Owen. That could have been a lot worse, especially for the championship. But cars weren't damaged. They sort of picked themselves up and kept going. Actually, on the Sunday, it was weird to see. James Courtney and Jack Perkins, they got a 6th. Although didn't they get a win last year? Or the year before?
No, I think it might have been last year.
Road track, didn't we decide that at the road race tracks?
Yeah, but
that car is quite
like
good.
a street circuit.
And they just,
the problem is though that
team
they were. The team seems to be sort of falling by the wayside at the moment. They're not the team that they once were. Obviously, a lot is about to change, so I don't really think they care too much. Maybe they're just starting to put things into action, making things happen. They were still quicker than what we're used to seeing them. So, the car still had that bit of age old. But the problem is, for me, you've got Triple Eight and DJR and Penske, and they keep pushing ahead more and more every single weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, they're looking so strong. And look, I just think race 2 for me, it's a simple case of either Red Bull's fuel economy is just so much worse than the Ford, the DJR Team Penske, and whether or not it's all of the Fords or if it's just that particular car, either that or they just made a poor decision, chose not to respond, I guess, to react to the early.
They thought they had it in the bag as for.
Well, I'm wondering if it was overconfidence. Were they sitting there going, wow, there's no way he'll make the end on that fuel strategy, so we can just do whatever the hell we want because he's being stupid and won't make it? Is that a case of the Penske, DJR Team Penske car just being so amazing on fuel economy? Or is that Red Bull's just overconfidence in their competitor's car going, there's no way they won't do it. They just won't make that.
Well, they were probably going off their numbers, and they thought that they needed a safety car. And they probably thought if there's a safety car, we'll just pit anyway. And then they'll pit. So, it was only one car. So it'd be different if there was another couple of cars up there, but they're only fighting one car. But I'm surprised they let that happen, considering it is the car to beat.
Yeah, I think at this point, I don't think that they would have done it if they didn't think they could have got away with it.
Red Bull
Not
don't
Triple
normally
Eight.
make. Triple Eight don't make.
I
Mistakes
agree that they thought
very
they'd get
often.
away with it, but the question is, they obviously they didn't. So was that because of an overconfidence in?
No, I honestly think that they did what they thought they had to do to win the race.
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense to me that they would try and bank on something else happening. You never rely on someone else's race. You got to do what you can do to make the best of the situation.
Yeah, like
And
they probably had an extra bit of fuel in, like probably one more lap, where the McLaughlin car probably went for one lap less, or there might have been sort of 1 to 2 laps within that.
Yeah, but
Plus
surely
the fact
you'd
that Scotty,
realise that he's going to be so much faster on a fresh set of tyres straight out there.
Well, he did the fastest lap of the race for that car on his outlap.
Yeah,
on his
it.
first fire. Yeah.
And Red Bull
well, they
chose
mustn't
not to
feel
react
so-
to that. They just went, oh well,
Yeah.
that's okay. We're just going to do our own thing because we'll be fine. We'll win anyway. And when they did interview Dutton, not that he said a lot, but he seemed pretty confident that they wouldn't have the fuel to get to the end. The McLaughlin car, that is.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
is why I make the assumption that they did what they thought they had to do to win the race, and that's it. Like, I don't think you can ever start making decisions on whether or not someone else will fail.
It's just interesting that out of both of those cars, they didn't choose to try and react with one. In either one of them,
Maybe they couldn't though.
No, obviously the fuel wasn't gonna. Well,
Yeah,
obviously
and
they
that's the
just
thing.
didn't think they'd make it to the end on fuel, which means that the
I
Penske
can't-
car must be just amazing on fuel.
Yeah,
oh, it is
I can't-
exactly less fuel in.
I can't see Triple Eight looking at the numbers saying, "Oh, look, we only need 70 litres of fuel, but let's put 80 in just in case."
Oh yeah, no, not suggesting that. I'm just
Yeah.
surprised they felt they couldn't. Either they couldn't, or they felt they didn't have to react to McLaughlin because of either being overconfident that he'd have to pit again, or the fuel economy is so bad in the Holden that they just were like, well, we can't pit now. We're going to have to let him go out there and do a couple of really fast laps before we're able to pit anyone. It's just how they didn't react with one. You know, you've got two cars up there. Split your strategy. Stick to your guns on one, whether it be Wing Cup or whichever they think's the most favourable. I suppose you might give to Wing Cup or Giz. And then whoever didn't get that strap, react to McLaughlin. That's what I would have done anyway. Try and have your horse in the next race.
If you're looking at your numbers though, and you think that they're not going to make it or whatever, it doesn't matter. Like if you look at your numbers and you say you're not going to finish the race if you don't have this much fuel, you're not going to.
It's probably a bad idea to give Wing Cup that job. Absolutely, I don't think Wing Cup's ever made a name for himself for saving fuel, has he?
To me, it doesn't matter. If you're looking and you can't make the end of the race on this fuel, then you don't try it. That's simple.
No, fair enough. If they legitimately looked at the laps and went, there is no way we can actually finish the race unless we turn the car down to a standard V6 engine based on fuel, then fair enough. But it just seemed like an odd call. Either that or they really have got fuel efficiency issues compared to the Ford, and in which case they're going to have a tough time. That's the gap they're going to have to bridge because fuel efficiency is massive, especially in enduros.
Well, yeah, that's a thing, but I guess it's it's not something I've ever seen such a difference in cars though. So it's I don't know whether that'll rear its head again or not, but who knows? Yeah. I think
it's funny the way the McLaughlin car is compared to everybody else. Like, obviously Scotty's a major talent, but this is where people used to go, "Oh, Triple Eight are cheating. Triple Eight are cheating. They've got to be doing something and paying them off." It's funny because everybody else is still probably in about the same spot as for pace.
Oh, yeah.
But the McLaughlin car is so much faster than everybody else. The fuel economy is unbelievable. They put less fuel in. It was like 10 litres less or something like that than the other guys and went out earlier.
Yeah, they put 70 litres in that one as opposed to 76, which was in Jamie Winkup's, but they did 3 extra laps on that 70 litres.
Yeah, so they must just have amazing, just phenomenal fuel efficiency. I think
the biggest thing to look at
from Scotty Mac though, because it's not like Fabs was up there,
but
the park.
Lap for lap, because I was watching the timing, they were pretty much matching each other. And most of the time, Gizzy was actually quicker but he got held up when he caught up to Wink Up again.
Yeah, so it's just a fuel efficiency thing. 'Cause the thing is, it's not just the lap times they were doing; it's the lap time McLaughlin was doing whilst using substantially less fuel than the Red Bulls.
Yeah,
well, I suppose when you're in front too, you can run your own race. You don't have to. He can set a number
as well. The other guys were probably driving as hard as they probably could, but McLaughlin's just out there. Okay, well, they're a second behind. No worries. I'll just let out of the throttle here, let out of the throttle there, brake early here, and just continue to maintain that gap.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it did. It was up and down that gap many times. Not necessarily because of the pace of the other guys, more because of stupid cars that wouldn't get out the freaking way. But
that blue flags was a real issue in this race. It really was.
It really was.
Yeah, McLaughlin was actually very. You don't see him get that adamant in the car, but when Tander was in front,
that was utter bullshit.
He actually threw his hands up in the air.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was.
But it wasn't just Tander. There was a heap
race.
There was a heap of guys that were just not getting out of the way, and it was they'd finally get out of the way of McLaughlin and then sit in front of
they'd cut back off
Wink
in
up
front of the Red Bulls.
for next race.
Yeah.
It's like, what the hell are you doing?
Honestly, I thought I was watching the GT3 race where the blue flag is apparently advisory and not to be adhered to. It was, and that's no joke. I tweeted, God, what's his name? The media guy for the Australian GT Championship. What's his name, Ron?
Matt Gosh.
Yeah, Matt Kosh. Tweeted at him and he said, no, they're advisory. They're blue flags. That's why people can ignore them. They don't have to do it. And that's what it felt like. Yeah. Honestly, they didn't care until, the last possible second. But it's like, just get out of the way. You're not gaining anything from this. These back markers were generally by themselves. Just get out of the way. Why ruin someone else's race or the race for the win? But look, either way,
or
it was
if you're going to do it, sit in front of McLaughlin, bring the three of them together, then get out of the way of all three of them and let them go back to racing.
Yeah, exactly. That would be good. But I mean, one thing I did like about Scotty Mack winning, first of all, he deserved it because his pace, the team's effort, the way they did everything was amazing. So they deserved the win.
Prema's pace.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't take anything away from him. And probably my favourite thing about Scotty Mack winning was that the championship is now as tight as you could really want.
I think it's the tightest championship almost ever. I think.
I can't believe how tight it is. After the
Scafey said it during the said it during the broadcast. It's the tightest ever.
Yep, it's 189 points from 5th to 1st. So that involves from the front, Jamie Whincup, Fabs is 17 points behind, Scotty is 27 points behind, Chaz Mostert is 126 points behind, and then Giz is 189 points behind. And then there's a 630 point margin from obviously Whincup to Craig Lowndes in 6th.
I was going to say, how is it Lounsey having the bloody year he has and he's in 6th?
I don't understand.
Where did that come from?
Shocking year and he's still 6th.
I think it's just because everybody else has obviously had shit results. Worse results.
I suppose you notice Craig Lowndes because you expect him to go well, but you probably don't notice Cameron Waters or Dave Reynolds and that sort of thing, how inconsistent they've been. But I mean, there is
a lot of the time.
Sorry, go.
Lance probably seems worse because he qualifies shit this year. It's been terrible, but he races like a bastard and ends up coming back up through the field. So that's probably where he
means that
your mindset from the start of the weekend.
What he means by bastard. Keep going with
it. Yeah, I do. But yeah, I just mean he races like a demon.
Maybe people from other countries sitting there going, "Oh, geez, this guy hates Lounsey." Then races like a bastard.
I don't think anyone could like Lounsey more.
No, me either. Yeah. Me either.
But I mean, I think the biggest thing to take away from the McLaughlin performance is where that team was 24 hours before. Not even 24 hours, even. That morning qualifying, they didn't even get into the shootout.
No. They look so bad. They look so bad all weekend.
Yep. It was almost... I actually didn't mind it because I thought, right, this is actually a chink in their armour. They haven't come out and they're not Superman for the year. It proves that they are all human still.
Until race.
So,
when they become superhuman all over again.
Until the race, and then, as I said before, then they race like bastards.
I think it was interesting, though, something that Scotty Mack was saying, that they were actually happy they didn't get into the shootout because they were so far away from everything that after qualifying, Ludo actually went back and they went over old setups and everything from Clipsal and wherever they were fast on street circuits and working out what was different and what they needed to change. Then they put a setup together, and well, the guy has a bit of a genius, isn't he? Like, that car was a bloody rocket ship.
He really is. He really is a wizard, isn't he?
You're talking about Ludo at this point.
Ludo,
Yeah.
To put a setup together based on old data from other tracks, just because things aren't working, so let's try something different, and to bring out that sort of speed in a car that was just nowhere all weekend. Like Coulthard in race 1, qualified up the back, finished up the back. They never showed signs of anything really. The cars just had nothing on Saturday, but Sunday those cars were really quick.
Yeah, well, I thought it was going to go all pear-shaped on Saturday when Prema sort of turned himself around and then got the little touch or however it all happened.
And
then
was
the back
complaining
of
to the world.
Yeah, because he...
can't see, it's too dangerous.
Yeah, and hit Reynolds, and then they couldn't get out of the car.
Yeah, that was another story in itself.
Yeah, so they busted the latch, so they had to climb out through the window. And I think it was Jack Perkins collected the back of the car, which then folded all that up.
Yep.
So, yeah. On the Jack Perkins James Courtney car as well, I'm surprised at the end of race 2 that they were in front of Percat, because it seemed that every time you saw the Boost mobile livery, they were the second car. They got the same livery, but different teams.
Well, the only reason why that was because Fabian Coulthard bloody turned them around.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised next year if they don't have the Boost.
What's that, Walkinshaw?
Yes.
I don't think you'll see Boost on either Walkinshaw or Brad Jones.
Yeah, really?
Because one, Walkinshaw don't need Boost money now that they've got the United and Andretti.
Yes.
So they'll be much like Penske. They've got their own story to tell now. They don't have to worry about money. But rumour around the ranks goes that the LDM are going to drop a lot RAC.
Mm-hmm.
Bright will take his over there. LDM's going to run PRA Falcons, and there'll be an RAC at PRA for Richie Stanaway, which will be supported by Boost.
Right.
All right.
Cheese and whiskers. Isn't that a little turnaround with everything? It's probably not surprising. The other thing, I suppose, LDM running the Falcons, they need to do something. They need to try and hook up with somebody, because what they've got is not working. And as much as they would all have the passion for it, which obviously the whole team really does, all it's doing is costing money and getting them not really anywhere. It's almost a little bit embarrassing for them, because here a couple of years ago, especially with like Russell Ingall, he was going all right with them in his final year, and then Nick Percat seemed to be stringing a couple of good results along. But since then, it's all sort of gone pear-shaped for them, and they've just been the team at the back. So it's good to see that they're doing something. Probably going to help PRA too, expanding a little bit more, because they're on their way back to the front of the field. They've got good pace, good fuel economy, and I think next year it's going to be a really hot battle with PRA, Penske, and Triple Eight.
Well, if things go the way that they're sort of suggesting to go, in 2018 you could have Mark Winterbottom at PRA being the slow guy.
That's right. I was watching actually from the weekend, and I thought, apart from Jason Bright, I wonder what's going to happen with Winterbottom in the next couple of years. I thought, because so far he hasn't really done a lot. Like, he's probably really good with the technical side of things with the car, but obviously they want to keep Waters. They're not going to get rid of Chaz Mostert, and they want to put Stanaway in there. Like, between Waters, Stanaway, and Mostert, that's a pretty good little team.
Yeah.
I thought you could have somebody like Mark Winterbottom. Obviously, he'll probably show up somewhere else. But if for some reason he didn't, you'd have somebody who won the championship with only a few years back, maybe not having a drive.
Yeah.
You think if Will Davison's sort of maybe on the way out, what could happen to Winterbottom? But I'm pretty sure that PRA would hang on to Winterbottom for quite a long time. That's sort of, I think Winterbottom's PRA's lousy to Triple Eight. Probably not as much, but yeah.
But the big thing for me is what happens with Mostert. You know, he hasn't signed an extension on a contract yet. He's still free agent after his contract is up, which I think is at the end of next year. But
he'll take Fab's seat.
No. See, my thing is, it looks pretty strong at this point in time, like BMW is grooming him. Because not only has he been selected for an M6 drive at the Macau Grand Prix, which is in the middle of November, an extremely tough track, which is essentially reserved for pros at this year. They've got rid of the rule where you can have amateurs and all that. It's an all-pro event. And the drivers that he will be up against are top-notch. And you got Felix Rosenqvist in the Ferrari, you got Vanthor in the Porsche, you got all the top names from all the marquees. But you got Marco Whitman, who is an absolute gun in the M6. And to see Mostert in the M6 against Whitman on a street circuit, bring it on.
Yeah,
and yeah, exactly. Because you got Augusto Farfus and Tom Blomqvist as well, which are both very good drivers. So there's 4 BMW drivers that'll be very strong. It'll be interesting to see how Mostert goes against them. And in a very quick change of events, Mostert's actually been selected this weekend. He'll be running in the M6 at Zhuhai in the Azure Le Mans series. So just again getting him another seat in the M6 sort of thing, making it happen.
Yeah, for sure.
And the big thing for me is BMW running in GTE with the new M8. It's going to pull drives out of DTM, and seeing Mostert in DTM to me is mouthwatering because he's a great driver. I said over the weekend to one of my mates that I would rate Mostert just as good as Scotty McLaughlin, and
I actually rate him. He's good. He's a hugely talented guy, 100%. Yeah.
And I think that he would do very well in DTM. So I don't think losing a drive at PRA would be the end of his world. I think he'll go on to do much bigger and better things. And he genuinely seems pretty excited to expand his international driving from everything I've been reading lately. So it's a massive option there as well. So hopefully things come together. And at this point, I'm just very excited to see what happens in November with him going up against the guns.
Yep, absolutely. No, it's gonna be very, very good. But look, I think I might quickly reroute this conversation to the MotoGP to finish off this podcast before we go. I was going
to say because we could talk about that one for another 2 hours, but let's continue.
Quite comfortably be sitting here in a couple of hours' time, but we'll try not to do that. Move on to the MotoGP, which was of course in Australia at my favourite track, Phillip Island, one of the only tracks of the international calendar I've ridden around. And when I say one of the only, I mean the only. But it was good. I liked it, and what a cracking race it was as well.
With a fantastic start.
Amazing. Jack Miller, straight into the lead, didn't muck around. Probably in the end cost him a better result than he got. But nonetheless, how was the crowd? Absolutely screaming as Jack Miller took the lead. And he's doing a pretty good job on what is a pretty average bike.
Yeah. And not to mention that, but like the different tyre strategies that was playing out. I mean, I'll be the first to stick my hand up and say I don't necessarily follow the MotoGP, but obviously Australian race, so I'm going to get in, have a look and all that. And it was right after we recorded it so we could watch it after the V8, so got onto it. And yeah, it was a fantastic start. So seeing them all go, but geez, it was good to see them all passing like they were.
Oh, it was ridiculous. It was a massive group at the front of the grid.
I think it was about 8 riders.
It was ridiculous. The amount of overtakes that were going on, the amount of lead changes there were, it was fantastic. If anything, for such an amazing race, it kind of fizzled out and finished in a little bit of a anticlimax, just because obviously Marquez pulled away a little bit at the front and a bit of a gap started to form. But up until the last few laps, it was probably one of the best races. And Phillip Island just seems to bring it out It's unique, and it suits bikes the way no other track on the calendar does, like some bikes, that is. It suits some riders like no other track does. They still say that the race from 2 years ago, 2015, was the race of the decade, with Rossi, Marquez, and that was when Iannone was still on the Ducati. And Phillip Island just has a way of doing it. And what a cracking race. It just doesn't seem to disappoint anymore, does it? Like, it was always exciting for us Aussies back watching Stoner anyway. But even since Stoner's gone, just the quality of racing there has been fantastic. And to watch Jack Miller obviously rip through the front. He dropped back a little bit. In fact, I was reading up on his post-race interview just before, and he basically said, yeah, look, he was obviously a bit overcome with excitement, I think, and adrenaline and all the rest, ripped straight to the front. And he probably cooked his tyres up a little bit. And he decided he actually wanted to drop back and let what he thought was Marquez behind him in second place. He wanted to actually let Marquez through so he had a marker to follow. And he could watch how aggressive he was being, how much he was spinning up the rear tyre and all the rest. But, he said he finally got a decent rhythm at the end. But, he'd already cooked his tyres up a little bit. So, nonetheless, 7th is not a bad little spot, I don't think. And to cap off a race like that was fantastic.
I think it was really good. As you said, even a 7th was good. It was pretty cool to see him lead for a couple of laps at the start there, and he pulled right away. He went balls to the walls, and it was probably it's the best race of the season, I reckon. It was close. It was good racing, a lot of passing. It was very aggressive, especially
really aggressive,
especially from Zarco. Very aggressive.
Wow, even Marquez at one point there was really shoving it up the inside, and it's like, you're fighting for a championship, pal.
Yeah, that's right. I thought that was a little bit desperate, but obviously the excitement got to him as well, because he ended up was his rear fairing. Did that have a crack in it?
Yep.
Yeah, because that must have been maybe around the time that he and Rossi had the big rub.
Well, yeah, his front tyre rubbed on Rossi's left arm, and you could see all the rubber.
Had rubber wounds on his leathers after the whole race, you could see.
Yeah. Just to show how close it was all getting.
I didn't get I didn't get what Rossi said, but he was pretty happy about how aggressive it was.
Yeah, he
Rossi
loved it.
loves that stuff. He absolutely laps that kind of racing up. It was aggressive. It was hard and fast, and he's an old school racer. That's what they used to do. Elbows out, and Marquez has always been like that. Marquez is a very aggressive rider. So is Rossi. Rossi's never not been like that. And everyone was getting in on the act, except for one key person, which is kind of why, as good as the race was, the actual results on paper were bad for the championship.
It was crap because Dovi was 13th, and then behind him was Carl Abraham. Yeah. Carl Abraham was behind Dovi, and then Lorenzo. What the hell? And then behind them was Tito Rabat. So, come on. What the hell?
Appalling. I've never seen the Ducati perform that badly, and all of them. There was no exceptions. They were all terrible and absolutely nowhere. I think Abraham for a while was actually the leading Ducati.
Yeah, well, I think, what was it, Reading in 11th or something like that. So they're all within that marker there. So
they passed him on the line.
They did, Dovi even got overtaken because he was up to 11th, and Reading, who finished as the top Ducati rider, Reading and Pedrosa ripped past him on the main straight. But that's what was disappointing. It wasn't just the race was great, but it was a shame to see Marquez win, and an even bigger shame to see Dovizioso 13th in terms of the championship, because Dovi gained 3 points, Marquez gained 25, and now the gap. You'd have to suggest that unless Marquez has a couple of DNFs and Dovi has a couple of rippers, the championship's all but over. Marquez has got to do the bank.
Definitely. He does, unless something silly happens, but you can't even say, if he breaks his leg, because he'll probably miss one race and still win the championship, or he won't miss either. So broken bones and things like that don't really cover that. He'll
be fighting for the win for the next 2 races, for sure. I think it's all over. I think Dovi it's weekends like this, it's tough weekends that determine the championship or not. And Marquez has had tough weekends this year, absolutely, but he's managed to come 5th or 4th, not 13th. And that's the difference. That's where the championships are lost. Yeah. In the tough weekends, you dig deep and you find a 5th place, or a fourth
Yeah.
place, versus you don't dig deep. You get beaten by a non-factory Ducati rider, and you come 13th overall, and your championship's over. I mean, he's now, 33 points. 33 points behind Marquez. It's, 25 points for a win. That's a massive ask with, 2 rounds to go?
Oh, it's embarrassing considering the previous round, Dovi was so aggressive, the Ducati was very good. And here at Phillip Island, where you think that this would probably be the best track for it, just about, it was terrible. I was very disappointed. I was really looking forward to seeing Dovi fight for the win here. And I thought even Lorenzo might have a little bit in the bag.
Yeah.
But
no, it was...
Lorenzo's done nothing. I know it's his first year on the Duke, and they would need to change a few things and develop the bike in how he likes it. And he's got to change his riding style because he's only ever been on the Yamaha.
Yeah.
But it's not a very good year for such a high-profile rider. No. He is better in the wet, which is a positive.
Well, he's kind of made a point to be better in the wet this year, I think, isn't he? Jeez, I'm just looking at a picture of Marquez there, back when he was 6, winning his first MotoGP race. I don't know what the hell that is, but geez,
has he changed at all?
Yeah, no, he got a haircut, I think. That picture was taken just the other day. But sorry to derail that conversation, but
I think something that's interesting for me as an outsider, and you guys might be able to help a bit, was obviously the tyre battle. Now, the whole race they were talking about how the soft was going to go off with 7 laps to go. And here I was thinking how aggressive Rossi is. He's putting himself in a very good position to be strong at the end of the race. But that soft tyre never dropped off at all.
No, and look, the thing with MotoGP, the one thing you'll learn is that the compounds are not sort of like Formula One, whereby you have a finite window that tyre is going to perform well, and then it drops off and you lose a couple of seconds a lap. Quite often the big difference between the soft, the medium tyres is literally feel from the rider. Technically it is a softer compound, but you hear riders all the same kind of go, all the time, kind of say that it's not about longevity of the tyre, it's about how it feels. And some people will pick the medium compound, because I think most of them picked the soft compound front. It was only... I think there was only 2 sort of in that top 10 area that picked medium. And it's just about the feel more than anything. In the rear tyre, it probably plays a bigger effect, because obviously you spin the rear tyre up, so the softer the compound, the less life you get. But the amount of times you sort of hear him talk about the compound of the tyres, and the reality is they all get to the end fairly comfortably, unless you're Lorenzo, where of course his tyre drops off by 4 seconds a lap after 3 laps. But other than Lorenzo...
But that's the interesting thing for me. Like they're saying that it's gonna change with 7 laps to go. As you said, most of them had a soft medium combination, where I think it was Rossi was the main contender that had a medium. But the thing for me was Zarco with a soft was just as strong at the start of the race, at the end of the race, as he was at the start.
He was. The thing with Zarco is, as fast as he was, he's always been really good on tyres. Like, always been exceptionally good on tyres. He's ridiculous. He's a phenomenal talent, and I know he looked aggressive, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with how Zarco went throughout the whole race.
Oh, yeah.
And to finish where he did was amazing. He probably could have finished a bit higher. Like, that guy is a seriously good rider, talented guy.
So he'd be good on maybe the Suzuki. Like, if the Suzuki picks up a little bit of pace... I don't know if
anyone would be that good on the Suzuki at the moment, to be honest. I don't know if Marquez would be winning championships on the Suzuki at the minute. I think I'd almost rather see him on a KTM or an Aprilia. Aprilia is starting to get good. I tell you what. Yeah. They've made some big inroads. Given that they were, lapping around at the back of the grid last year, they've come a hell of a long way.
Well, even the Red Bulls there, they were the Red Bull KTMs. They were really good. They were 9th and 10th. That's massive compared to previous rounds when they've been...
That's what I mean about Phillip Island, because it's so fast and flowing, and there's so many high-speed corners here. It seems to bring out certain qualities in some bikes and riders that other tracks just don't. You don't see it throughout the rest of the year. It's a unique track, and that's why I think it always brings out good racing. And it's popular with the riders, And it just seems to play into, brings out the best in some bikes that wouldn't otherwise have it. But tell you one thing about those KTMs, they're not lacking horsepower. For a brand new bike, they are not short of grunt. They go down the straights just beautifully.
Don't they?
It was interesting to see the aero faring back as well. And the Red Bulls, or the KTM, don't really have that, but they do have that sort of flat, weird-shaped front on the bike. They've almost got like a permanent front aero kit, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah, with the, like you're saying about the results with the bikes, suiting different bikes, you got the two Suzukis. Jack Miller was 7th, so he's not always in the 10. You got the two KTMs, which were 9th and 10th. You got Scott Redding in 11th. So you take out all those bikes, and then you've got like Pedrosa, Dovi, I suppose Lorenzo. Like they would all move up the 4 to half a dozen bikes that I just mentioned. So it's probably the better result from them that has made the Ducatis look worse.
Yeah, it certainly didn't help. Yeah, putting him in between. It certainly didn't help. And look, it was a huge showing from them and a great result. But yeah, disappointing from the Ducatis and surprising around Phillip Island, where Ducatis have in the past been quite strong. So yeah, nonetheless, it was a good thing. But I think the championship, unfortunately, in MotoGP is just about run and done. But one interesting thing coming up for the next race is they're replacing Folger, who's still out with that pretty bad virus that he's got. They've replaced him with Vandermark from the World Superbike Championship.
Right.
Yeah, so Vandermark will be stepping onto Folger's bike. I think they wanted to use Vandermark this round as well, but he had, of course, the Superbikes were on this weekend, or the recent weekend, so he couldn't. He had a clash, and that's why they ended up choosing Brock Parks, who was predictably probably not the greatest. But Brock Parks, good guy, but he's been around for a long time, and I just don't think, he obviously knows the track quite well. But yeah, anyway, I discussed last week what I thought about Brock Park being on the bike. I think they did want Vandermark to be at Phillip Island, but he couldn't because of the clash, but he will be there for the next round, so got that to look forward to. Be interesting to see how Vandermark goes. I remember when Johnny Ray got a crack on the Honda for a race and went quite well, and his Superbike career went uphill from that point. So I'm wondering if Vandermark's going to find himself in a similar position. It'd be cool if he did, because I think he's a talented guy. Excuse me. Yes, but it's going to be interesting to see how he goes on the bike. It's always a big change adjusting to the tyres, because I know the one big change between the World Superbikes and the MotoGP is the rubber that they're on. The different compounds, the sort of lean angle you can get on a MotoGP bike. Apparently, they spend the first half of the weekend getting told by the pits, you need to lean it in more, like get more lean angle, go faster in the corners.
Well, that's what Johnny Ray said last time when he was on the Repsol Honda. That was Marquez's bike. When he was on that, they said,
it was too, yeah.
Yeah, they're like, lean more. And he's like, eh. And they're like, brake later. And he said, I'm just...
Yeah, brake later, lean more. Be more extreme. And they're kind of going, he was going...
Because I don't really know how.
Yeah.
Yeah. He said, my brain sort of gets to the point and goes, okay, this is the happy place.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So that would have taken a little bit to get used to, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. So
it would have felt phenomenal. The first few laps, they would have just gone, "Oh my god,
the
this
endless
thing
grip,
is incredible."
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. But look, I think at this point I am going to end the podcast. We have now been going on for just over an hour. So I think I might end it there. But I will take the opportunity to thank everybody who has joined us. Hopefully you have enjoyed the episode, and of course feel free to check out all of our other podcasts on this YouTube channel or by visiting www.flagtoflag.ml. And of course, last but not least, thanks for joining me, Ryan and Willie.
Thank you.
Look, no worries.
Well, we look forward to talking to you all next time, but it's bye for now.